Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Yeah, I'm sitting outside here roasting, but I have a bunch of furniture that I need to burn up. I have an old desk that I took out of my library. I've got like an old dinner table when we got a new dining set a few months ago, and it's all just been kind of sitting out here in a pile in my yard, which is not actually within the rules of the POA that I live in, just as well as kind of an eyesore and all that. So it's hot today, but I figured I better get it taken care of because we don't have any wind today that would put us under any kind of a burn ban or whatever. So I decided I would sit out here and do that. So I'm playing a little game with myself to try to survive this like 90 degrees or whatever we're dealing with today. I have to sit out here and burn wood until I have finished this. So this is a Apple paperback from my childhood. It's like 125 pages, and it's called Yours Till Niagara Falls, Abby by Jane O'Connor. I read this book so many times as in my childhood. It's a book about a girl that goes to camp. The little tagline says, 8 weeks without your best friend is a long time. So it's letters that Abby writes home to her best friend and like the stuff she gets up to at camp. But I was thinking about it a couple of weeks ago because my kids went to summer camp and made me think about this book. I don't know. Anyway, decided to pick it up. Ordered it on Pango, I think. And so it's come. So I have got to read this whole book out here and burn wood while I'm reading. And then when I get done, I can go inside and enjoy my air conditioning again. So all of you in the UK and Europe who have been struggling with this heat, my booktube friends who keep talking about how miserable you are, I am sitting in solidarity with you for the next couple of hours and letting myself experience summer without an air conditioner. And I've got this whole smoky air to breathe on top of it. So just saying, I'm just gonna experience it with you for a minute, but not very long. Definitely dated. We have like in the opening scene, Abby's friend's mother smoking a cigarette, and a few pages in, her father slaps her playfully on the rear. And while that may actually happen in homes in a playful way, that's not something we encourage in modern day children's literature, I'm pretty sure. Maybe you can't see the fudgesicle steaming, but it is. That's so weird. Summer is so weird. I have this big pile in my yard of old wood, broken pallets, broken furniture that my son has chopped down to smaller pieces, and I really need to get this cleaned up. So even though it is 50 million degrees outside, I am planning on giving myself little reading challenges to motivate me to get this pile burnt up. I've got this, like, whatever this is, fire pit thing, and that is what I'm burning everything in. We don't have a burning barrel, and we don't really have a good place to just make a pile. We also live in a forest, so it's probably not the greatest idea anyway to be burning openly, right? So this is what we're doing, and I really hope it doesn't take very long because it's super hot. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Hope you are all doing well today. I thought I would come in today and talk about the books that I've been reading lately. I don't think I've made a check-in for like 10 days. So it's not so much a weekly check-in as it's like a weekly and a halfly. If you are new here, I don't normally sound like I've been munching gravel, but I have been trying to make a video for, I don't know, all week long. And my voice is just horrible. I'm getting over being sick and it's just not going away. That's crazy. I mean, the only thing going away is my voice. So sorry you gotta put up with this annoying sound of my voice today. Normally it's lovely, lilting, and melodic, right? But I have a little sack here, actually. I've got a lot of reading in, not been super busy. So I'm going to share all this stuff with you guys today. And I'll probably batch film a bunch of stuff. So you guys are going to get gravel voice for like a week, maybe even a week and a half. Real quick before we get started, I want to remind you guys that I am doing the Jane Austen July giveaways. So when you hear the keyword in this video, make sure and go down to the link in the description box and enter the keyword as well as your email and whatever else it asks you for, so that you can be entered into the drawing. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, there is a link to my giveaway video in the description box that will tell you all the details about what I'm giving away this month and how you can enter to win. But basically, you just need to listen to all of the videos that I've made since June 30th. Each one of them has a different keyword in it. And when you hear the keyword, you can go in and put it in a little linky form thing. And then at the end of the month, I will draw out a bunch of winners. It is open internationally, as well as here in the US. So there are prizes for everyone. All right, first book I want to talk about, Castle of the Winds by Christina Baehr. I did finish this. I ended up giving it 2 stars. It was a 3-star read up until like the last 5 pages, in which there is a comparison made between Edith and something she experienced compared to something that Lily experienced. And the way it is done is just disgusting. Harsh, no comparison, just flippant, really immature, naive, short-sighted. I was just not pleased. So she ended up getting 2 stars in the end. If you guys want to know the details of the spoilers on that, you can go to my Goodreads review. But I will say that this one had more story, I think, than the first 2. There's a little bit more going on, a little bit more of a developed story, as best I remember. After the ending to this book, though, I am kind of annoyed with myself that I actually care about what's going to happen in the next one. But I will order it and I will read it. But I don't know. I'm not loving the series, but I've said that before. All right. And then I read the preface in the first chapter of About Time. This is by David Rooney. This is the history of the world in 12 clocks. He uses the word clocks sort of loosely. It's basically 12 ways of tracking time. The very first thing that I tabbed in this book, he's talking in the introduction about GPS satellites. And in the 1970s, how they threw a bunch of GPS satellites up in the sky and how they're still there. Like they're shut down now, but they are still orbiting the Earth. And he says, the night sky is a museum of old clocks. I loved that. Thought that was so good. But even further looking at the stars, constellations, it's a way of tracking times and seasons, and it's a museum of old clocks. I love that. The first chapter in the book was on order and just talking about how keeping time kind of brought things into a better order, but also how keeping time can allow a government to control its people, or any kind of a body to control the movements of people, and clocks had a lot to do with that, of bringing societies into a different order than they were naturally used to or running on. He's talking about clock towers and how they served as a symbol in civilizations, different cities, whatever. When a conqueror would come in and take over, they would put up something resembling a clock tower. And it was kind of a symbol of, you're running on our time now. We're in charge now, whatever. There's a lot more depth to it than that, but you get it. But anyway, he was talking about this one specific, the Tower of the Winds, which harkened back to the Castle of the Winds for me in my brain. But the Tower of the Winds in the Greek city of Athens. And he was describing what it looked like. And he said that inside the ceiling was painted a stunning blue color covered with golden stars. So what I have here on the screen is the choir, the wall behind the choir at Winchester Cathedral. And that's immediately what I thought of when I read that, because that's what that is. It's a blue, just brilliant blue with gold stars. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if that was the inspiration, right? This clock tower in Athens, if that was the inspiration for this beautiful wall here at Winchester Cathedral. So, of course, I got to go and study that some more just because I'm interested. So yeah, that was a really interesting chapter. I'm going to be reading at least one chapter a month from this. I'm kind of on this kick of reading, books that I can read all year long, a chapter per month sort of a thing. So anyway, really enjoyed that. Definitely a good introduction so far. All right, and then I read this. This is volume the third by Jane Austen. It's a collection of 2 of her stories of juvenilia. I talked about this a couple of videos ago, but this is a true first edition of Jane Austen, published in the 1950s, never before published. She compiled this volume at age 17. So when she wrote it, I'm not exactly sure, but it was 17 or earlier that she put these 2 stories together. The 2 stories in here are called Evelyn or Evelyn, and then also Catherine or the Bower. And I had read Catherine of the Bower before. I read it last year when I was in England. I didn't enjoy the story as much this time. I think I just didn't follow it as well. I think I was just distracted, but it's touted as an unfinished novel. However, I think where it drops off, maybe it could have been actually a finished short story. If you look at it as a finished short story, then where the story ends is kind of a ironic sort of place, with them talking, with the characters talking about how they love to go out, but they have to have men to escort them. And it's all tongue-in-cheek, in Jane Austen's way. And so it's kind of, I can see how this actually could be a finished short story. So I don't know. I think that that's debatable, but all the experts tell us that is unfinished novel. If you go with my theory, though, I think it's just kind of a short story with an ending that's kind of an eye roll to the chaperones of the young girls in the story. But then the first story in the book was Evelyn, and it was really farcical, right? I kept thinking about just kind of the obvious mocking of other sensational stories of the time, and just kind of how she does in Northanger Abbey as well, right? She's mocking the sensational Gothic stories, but then I got to thinking, well, maybe those sensational stories were also mocking. Like maybe everybody's just mocking and that was just what it was, right? Maybe they weren't trying to be serious. Maybe they were trying to be silly. So I don't know. It kind of took me on a rabbit trail of thought. But stories like this from this time just kind of remind me of a stage performance. It's almost like they were written that way, right? So maybe that is what is inspiring everyone. I recently shared with you guys a book about 18th century playwrights, women playwrights. So, I'm pretty sure that plays were a pretty big part of the lives of these writers, right, for entertainment and inspiration. But a lot of times they are written kind of like that, right, just sort of slapstick, one-liners, that kind of thing. Anyway, enjoyed that. Probably won't read it again for a few years, though, now that I've read Catherine twice and 2 years in a row, and it's really not that fantastic of a story. But let's move on. All right, and then I read... this was a book from my childhood. This is Yours Till Niagara Falls, Abbey by Jane O'Connor. And I thought about reading this because my kids had gone to summer camp and I was thinking about summer camp and, whatever. And I remembered this book and I read it a lot when I was a kid. After reading it last week, I went on my Goodreads and realized that I actually read it in 2019 and I totally do not remember that at all. So I reread it now. As you saw, I talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the video, but I don't know. I didn't really enjoy it so much. I think I just gave it 2 stars. It didn't age well. Well, as I said, it started right off kind of weird. Later chapters have the girls sneaking out and drinking beer at the camp. And I don't know, it's just kind of, I don't think that would really fly for the age of children that this book was marketed to when I was a kid. So the oldest kids in this book are 10 years old. So it was definitely marketed more to like the 8 and 9-year-old, kids. So that probably wouldn't fly in a elementary school age book nowadays. Who knows? But I don't know. Nostalgia's kind of gone, but I thought maybe I would just keep it around so my kids one of these days can read it and laugh at 80s and 90s melodrama. Next, I had a super great read. I gave this 4 stars. This is Mrs. Lorimer's Quiet Summer by Molly Clavering. This is the first book that I've read in these publications called the Furrowed Middle Brow publications. It's just kind of like a series with Dean Street Publishing. And they're all books that were just they're just republished stories from, I don't know, mid-century maybe. And I don't know if it's just British authors. It kind of looks like maybe so far. I haven't really looked deeply at the list, but everything I've seen so far looks like British authors. And they're just slice of life stories. And I am finding these books are just finding me without me really looking for them. There are like 70 or 80. Let me look. Yeah, there are 72 publications. And I picked this because I wanted to read something from the series, the Furrowed Middle Brow, series, not necessarily because it's Molly Clavering or because I like the cover or the name of the book sounded good to me or the description of it sounded good. I just wanted to read something, so I just picked something. I just literally went on Amazon and just clicked. And randomly, it's one of those books that I just keep reading. I just keep accidentally reading, where you've got a woman who is either middle age or approaching middle age, and she doesn't have any kind of a really huge crisis. She just kind of finds out something about herself. And she's not necessarily finding herself. She's just sort of finding out about herself. Maybe she has a character flaw that has come to light that she, needs to sort of figure out. And it's just a gentle, light little thing. Maybe she has a character flaw that she never does figure out. That's Mrs. Lorimer in my opinion. But she just is coming to a better understanding of herself just by living her day-to-day life. And we just see a little slice out of that life. I am just coming across so many books like that to the point where I'm making notes and I'm going to make a video for y'all. So I think that's funny that those kind of books are just sort of serendipitously falling into my lap. But I did enjoy Mrs. Lorimer's Quiet Summer. It's a tongue-in-cheek sort of sarcastic title because Mrs. Lorimer doesn't actually have a quiet summer. She's a little bit older than me. She's probably mid-50s or so. And all of her adult kids are coming home for a few nights to all be together at the house. And so it's just the preparations for that. It's the different sort of conflicts and things, just the regular old life conflict sorts of things. Like I said, it's not any really huge major story or major plot. It's just kind of a look at a few days in these people's lives. And so it may not seem that interesting unless you are actually in that stage of life or have been in that stage of life. In that case, there's a whole bunch of stuff to relate to. At the beginning of the story, I felt like I really related to Mrs. Lorimer. She wanted to say things to her adult children, but knew she probably better not. She believed that everything she would say would end up being the wrong thing. She thought about how she had poured every moment of her life into these kids. And then as they became young adults, she just kind of had to sit back without even having a look on her face, right? Because it might be misjudged. And just sort of watch life happen to them. And not really be able to intervene because they don't want her to intervene. They're dealing with adult struggles, right? And they want to. They don't want mom's advice. I just felt her heartbreak so much. But after a while, decided maybe me and Mrs. Lorimer aren't the same. Like, I feel like I've learned some things that she needed to learn. Maybe learned a little bit in the story, but I don't see a whole lot of character growth with her. She could get really snobby and sort of judgmental. She holds unfair prejudices and really needed to learn how to let go of the things that you can't control. And those are things that I've been learning about lately too. She interferes a lot though, especially in her kids' marriages, which is a major no-no. She's really kind of a busybody, and there isn't really many consequences for that. So I don't know about that, because that's just a really bad idea. I actually, so far, as far as I know anyway, haven't committed too much of that crime. In the end, I didn't end up caring all that much for Mrs. Lorimer, but I really liked her friend Gray. Gray is a single woman who lives, I don't know, up the road, and they've been friends for a really long time. And the story starts out with her and Gray sitting down to chat over tea, and it ends the same way. And I really liked that. I liked that Gray was her friend, even though she saw the flaws, and she actually was just kind of quiet about them. She might have just slightly dropped a hint here and there to sort of help the family along, but for the most part, Gray stayed out of things and was just a friend to Mrs. Lorimer, and I love that. So I really enjoyed this. Like, I already have ordered another one of these. In fact, I have it. It came. And so I may actually be starting that tonight, but I'm loving these stories. I think they're just what I need in this time of life where, like, I'm not finding myself, but just kind of finding out who I am as a woman in her mid-40s, you know, with adult children or almost grown kids, right? All of my kids at home are teenagers or adults. And then I have adults out of the house. I got grandkids already. Like, I'm there. I'm there, man. But just trying to find out who I am as that person who just really doesn't have a whole lot of responsibilities on my plate. You know, I can get my stuff, you know, my responsibilities around the house, I can get done in just a short time. And then I'm just kind of like, do. So it's actually kind of nice, right? If you're in a season where you're trying to figure out who you are, to have the time to do so. So I'm feeling blessed for that. All right. And then finally, I read The Blue Castle, which I had never read before. This is by L.M. Montgomery. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I've heard about this all over the place. I have another little copy, kind of one of those from the 80s, little tiny paperback copies, that I've had for years, like 25 years or something. Never read it. Never been interested really in reading the L.M. Montgomery stories. I read Anne of Green Gables with one of my daughters, and love that, of course. But, you know, I love the Anne movies with Megan Follows, but I just have never really been interested in reading the books. But guess what happens in this book? There's this woman who finds out some stuff about herself by taking her own personal journey. Yeah, it was another one of those books, guys. I'd say this book is really satisfying. I didn't completely adore it because I really don't think I like the main character. And after going through a lot of Goodreads reviews, I found out that I'm not the only one, so it's okay. I'm not actually committing some kind of sacrilege here. I don't think, anyway. But I think it was the kind of read that I was looking for. I loved the nature descriptions. I'm more and more appreciating nature descriptions in my old age. It is beautiful. Like, Ellen Montgomery, she writes beautiful nature descriptions. So I really enjoyed that. In fact, once I got quite a ways into it and realized just how much beauty she's describing here, I sort of wish that I would have paid better attention at the beginning. But I'll reread this, I'm sure. There were so many laugh out loud moments in this book. I mean, there were so many times when I put this book down and started laughing. But I also found that I got almost choked up in a couple of places, and I just don't cry at books. I just don't very often. Anyway, I think I cried at one book last year. So that was surprising. So the story is about Valency. She is 29 years old, and she has always lived at home, but it's not like your normal young daughter who lives at home. Like, I have a daughter who's almost 27 who lives at home. She's got tons of freedom. This girl, Valency, like, zero freedom. It's to the point where it is kind of abusive, actually. So anyway, so, you know, just use your imagination. I won't go into detail, but anyway, one day Valency decides, hey, I'm actually sick of this life and I want to go live free. So one day, Valency actually defies her family and goes to a doctor. She's been feeling kind of funky and she just wants answers. She goes and finds out that she's going to die within the year. She's got a terminal illness and she is going to die any moment. The doctor says, so, you know, you might as well take it easy. Don't have any big shocks. Pretty much do nothing because it'll just bring it on faster. So just go home and sit and wait to die. And, but instead that kind of shocks Valency into like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Like, I only have a year left and this is what I've done with my life. And so she starts rebelling all over the place. She rebels left and right, and then she finally does leave home, and she goes and actually does something really important and useful with her time. So much of this is funny and endearing and delightful. I really did enjoy so much of this. What I did not enjoy was Valency herself. I really didn't like her, and at the beginning, of course, I felt sympathy for her, but after she started living like her free life, there was just a few things that just really rubbed me the wrong way. I put it all in Goodreads with hidden spoilers, so if you want to know my thoughts and you don't care about spoilers or you've already read it, you can go over to my Goodreads and check that out. But I don't know, she just didn't end up being a character that I loved. Who I did love, though, was a character named Barney, and he's a man who lives in the area, and he's a part of the story. And I really adored him, but not so much Valency. Anyway, it's a good read. I'm sure I'll read it again. I'm glad I read it. And it fit right in there with all of those books that just keep showing up in my life. So if you have any good recommendations, what I'm looking at here are stories where a woman like 35 plus, you know, would be great age range, sort of discovers something about her own self. It's not a huge, massive change. It's just a little thing, right? She just goes through something, or she just discovers something, or she just has kind of a moment of understanding, and she's done it herself, right? It's not that someone has been like, hey, how come you can't see this about yourself? Or, hey, you know, I'm going to come in here and reform you. And it doesn't have to do anything with a man. It's just her on her own, like figuring out, hey, this is part of who I am now in this season. And it's a self-awareness and a self-discovery sort of theme. But it's got to be super cozy, super clean, super just slice of life, something that's going to make me happy. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. That's not too much to ask, is it? The keyword is gravel. And what I am currently reading is Mansfield Park. I've been reading it for 900 years or so. I've been reading it probably 2 weeks, just a little at a time. I love it. I love the story. I love like the 6 to 8 sentence synopsis of Mansfield Park. It's a good story. It has value and merit. It does. It's just so boring. I said that word. It's really slow moving. It is. And it's okay. But I think that if I didn't know anything else about Jane Austen, I probably wouldn't finish Mansfield Park. I probably DNF it, guys. But because, you know, I know it and love it, of course, it's a beloved book. It's just super slow moving, right? Not a lot happens. And so I'm reading a little bit, and then I'm reading something else, and then I'm reading a little bit, reading something else. So tonight, I have nothing else going except for Mansfield Park, and I read it last night. That's all I read. So tonight, I'm going to pick out something else. I will probably start the next furrowed middle brow book that I got is Victoria Cottage by D.E. Stevenson. So I'm probably going to start that tonight. Not exactly sure, but that's my plan anyway. And maybe in a couple of days I'll pick up Mansfield again. I do not think that I am going to finish that by the end of July. But I'll be done with it by the end of the summer, so that's good enough. And it may be my worst Jane Austen. It may. I haven't reread Emma in a really long time, so I need to reread Emma and decide, because I don't really care for Emma, like herself, all that much, but I need to reread her story. And then I can decide where Mansfield fits, whether it's 5 or 6 for me. All right, guys, but that's all I've got to share today as far as what I've read so far. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for putting up with my gravelly voice. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.